Hey, Cowboys Nation. Today, we need to take a moment to talk about something that goes far beyond the field, beyond the highlights, beyond the touchdowns and the celebrations. We're talking about life off the field, about the struggles that players face that don't make it into the highlight reels or the headlines. And this isn't easy to discuss, but it's important because it's real and it affects real people, teammates, friends, families, and fans alike. Today, we're talking about Marshawn Nelland. This is a young man who had the world at his fingertips, a player who had just begun his journey in the NFL, someone who had a dream, and someone who inspired people with his dedication, his effort, and his talent. But behind the helmet, behind the bright lights, behind the Dallas Cowboys uniform, Marshawn was facing battles that no stat line or news clip could ever show. I want to be clear right now. This is not a conversation for cheap views or clicks. This is not about rumors or speculation. This is about honoring a life and doing it with the respect it deserves. There are people out there struggling with mental health, with grief, with feelings of isolation and pressure, and we can't ignore the fact that even athletes, young, talented, seemingly unstoppable athletes, face moments of profound pain. Marshawn's story is a reminder of that, and it's a story that we need to tell carefully, with care for his family, his friends, and everyone who loved him. This isn't easy to talk about, but it is necessary. We owe it to him and to everyone watching to approach this honestly and with compassion. Marshawn's journey to the NFL was not simple. He had talent, of course, but like so many young athletes, he also had to navigate the enormous pressures of expectations, of constant evaluation, of being in the spotlight before he was fully prepared for it. And then came February of 2024, a month that changed everything. His mother, Wendy, passed away unexpectedly. This wasn't just a loss. It was the loss of a guiding force in his life, someone who had been there for him since the beginning, supporting him, cheering for him, pushing him forward. For any athlete, the combine, the draft process, and the start of an NFL career are already monumental challenges. But to face that journey while carrying such a devastating personal loss, it's unimaginable. And yet, Marshawn found the strength to continue, to honor the love and support his mother had given him, to push forward toward his dreams despite the weight of grief pressing on his shoulders. And that's what makes this story so hard. Because on one hand, you look at a young man who achieved a lifelong dream. He made it to the NFL. He became a Dallas Cowboy. He stepped onto the field, lived the dream, and earned his spot among the best. On the other hand, you look at a life that was deeply hurting, a life that was in pain in ways most of us can't see, a young man using a smile, using moments of joy, even using the football field itself to mask the intensity of his inner struggles. This is the reality for so many athletes, and it's the reality for so many people in our lives. Pain doesn't always show itself. You don't always know who is struggling just by looking at them. And that's why conversations like this matter. They remind us to be vigilant, to be compassionate, and to hold each other accountable, not just on the field, but as human beings. There are people in the sports world, and even in the Cowboys community, who fail to understand this. They confuse being first with being right, attention with integrity, engagement with empathy. They spread rumors or amplify stories without regard for the consequences, without consideration for the human beings involved. And while the internet can be a place for excitement, for debate, and for fandom, it can also be cruel, and it can be dangerous. Marshawn's story shows us exactly why this matters. He did not deserve to have his struggles, his humanity, or his tragedy turned into content or speculation. He was not just a story, he was a person. And every time someone uses another's pain for clout, for attention, or for validation, they contribute to a culture that makes it harder for people to ask for help, to speak honestly about their struggles, or to feel safe in moments of vulnerability. Marshawn's death was a tragic reminder that even young, talented, seemingly successful individuals can be silently suffering. Reports indicate that he faced a mental health crisis, and the circumstances of his passing were heartbreaking. Behind the headlines and police reports was a young man who had just achieved so much, but who had also carried the weight of immense personal pain. He was not a criminal. He was not a villain. He was someone who needed help, and he deserved support, not judgment. And when we look at his life and his career, it's impossible not to feel the weight of what he went through. The pressure, the grief, the isolation, the the responsibility of living up to expectations both on and off the field. This is a reality that professional athletes face quietly, but it is no less real because it is unseen. And yet, even with all of this, Marshawn was a dreamer. He was a competitor. He was a teammate. He was someone who loved football with everything he had, and he carried his passion forward even in the darkest of times. From the first time he stepped on a practice field to the moment he took the field as a Dallas Cowboy, he chased a dream he had worked for his entire life. But dreams alone cannot shield a person from the depth of human pain. No contract, no draft pick, no touchdown can replace the love of a mother, the guidance of family, or the comfort of emotional support when someone is struggling. And this is something that we, as a community of fans, of fellow humans, need to remember. We cheer for the highlights, but we must also be there in moments that cannot be measured in statistics. We must hold each other accountable to empathy. We must look out for one another, and we must never forget that every player, every person, has a life beyond the field, with its own battles and challenges. Marshawn's story also reminds us to check on the people around us, to look past the smiles, past the social media posts, past the moments of celebration, and see the reality behind them. Loss, grief, and mental health struggles don't come with signs or warnings, and often, those suffering are masters of hiding the depth of their pain. His journey shows that strength is not always visible, that the brightest moments on the field can sometimes mask the darkest moments off it. And as fans, as members of a community, as human beings, we have a responsibility to be kind, to be compassionate, and to hold space for others. This is bigger than football. This is about life. This is about people. And it is a lesson that cannot be ignored. As we continue to reflect on Marshawn Nellen's story, it's important to understand the full picture, not just the tragedy, but the person he was, the dreams he chased, and the life he lived, even in the midst of unimaginable challenges. From the outside, it may have looked like everything was going perfectly. He had just been drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. He had stepped onto one of the biggest stages in professional football, and he had the opportunity to showcase his talent among the elite. But we have to remember, success in the NFL does not shield someone from human pain. In fact, sometimes the opposite is true. The higher the stakes, the greater the pressure, the heavier the weight of expectations, and the harder it becomes to carry personal struggles in silence. Marshawn's journey is a painful but essential reminder that athletes are people first, people who feel, who grieve, who hurt, and who sometimes carry more than any of us can imagine. Marshawn's path to the NFL was paved with resilience and dedication. From high school standout to college athlete, from the grueling preparation of the combine to the nerve-wracking moments of the draft, every step required focus, sacrifice, and an unbreakable spirit. But even as he celebrated his victories, he was still human, still vulnerable. After losing his mother, Wendy, in February of 2024, Marshawn faced a void that no accomplishment could fill. She had been his anchor, the voice of encouragement, the person who had believed in him from the beginning. And despite the grief that threatened to pull him under, he continued to move forward. He participated in the NFL Combine, he impressed scouts and coaches, and he ultimately earned the opportunity to fulfill his dream with the Cowboys. But this path, as remarkable as it was, did not erase the pain he carried. The grief lingered, quiet yet relentless, following him into every huddle, every practice, every moment of his daily life. We often measure athletes by their stats, their on-field performance, their ability to impact games. But these measures fail to capture the essence of who a person is. They cannot quantify the courage it takes to keep going when the world feels unbearably heavy. Marshawn's story shows us that sometimes the greatest victories happen off the field, in the quiet decisions to persevere, to show up, to keep dreaming, even when your heart is breaking. His journey reminds us that the human element of sports, the emotions, the personal battles, the triumphs and tragedies beyond the scoreboard, is what truly matters. These are the things that define a person, that shape a legacy, and that leave a lasting impact on everyone who witnesses it. And it is equally important to recognize the role of community. The Cowboys family, the teammates, the coaches, the fans, they are all part of the network that surrounds a player. But support cannot be passive. It requires awareness. It requires empathy. It requires action. We cannot rely solely on the headlines, the clips, or the social media posts to understand someone's struggles. We must actively engage, check in, and listen. Martian's story forces us to confront a difficult truth. Appearances can be deceiving. A smile can hide despair. A touchdown celebration can mask a day of silent suffering. And as fans, as members of a community, it is our responsibility to honor the person behind the jersey, to see them as more than athletes, and to acknowledge the pressures and vulnerabilities they carry. Beyond the personal grief, Martian's situation also highlights the broader conversation about mental health in professional sports. Too often, players are expected to be invincible, to perform without faltering, to carry the weight of expectations without showing weakness. This culture of relentless performance can discourage athletes from speaking up, from seeking help, and from expressing their struggles. It creates an environment where silent battles can escalate into tragedy. But the lesson here is clear. Mental health is as critical as physical health. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of courage. And we, as fans and as human beings, must support an environment where players feel safe to reach out, to be honest about their pain, and to know that they are seen, heard, and valued beyond their athletic contributions. Martian's death also serves as a stark reminder of the importance of empathy in every corner of our sports communities. There are people who spread rumors or speculate about players without considering the human cost, who treat tragedies as entertainment or social currency. This is unacceptable. Martian's life, like all lives, deserves dignity and respect. And as a community, we must hold ourselves accountable, to celebrate achievements without dehumanizing individuals, to critique without cruelty, and to care enough to intervene when someone appears to be struggling. The NFL, the media, the fans, none of us are exempt from this responsibility. Every interaction, every comment, every story we share has the power to uplift or harm, and Martian's story reminds us why empathy must come first. Even in the shadow of tragedy, there is something profoundly inspiring about Martian's journey. His dedication to his craft, his determination to honor his mother's memory, and his perseverance in the face of grief are lessons that transcend football. They remind us of the fragility of life, the importance of human connection, and the responsibility we all share to look out for one another. His story encourages us to cherish the relationships we have, to reach out to those who may be struggling silently, and to recognize that even the brightest stars may be carrying unseen pain. And while we mourn his loss, we also remember the joy, the effort, and the heart he brought to every moment of his life, both on and off the field. Martian's story challenges us to be better, not just as fans, but as human beings. It asks us to treat players as people first, to measure our admiration not solely by athletic prowess, but by compassion, integrity, and understanding. It urges us to reflect on our own lives, to nurture the relationships that matter, and to be vigilant about the silent struggles around us. In the end, football is more than a game. It is a lens through which we can see resilience, vulnerability, and the human spirit in its most raw and honest form. Martian's life, though tragically cut short, leaves a legacy that extends far beyond the field. It calls us to act with empathy, to speak with kindness, and to never forget that behind every player is a person, with hopes, fears, and challenges that deserve our respect and our care. Before we roll on, subscribe to Cowboys Wire News, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Your support keeps the Dallas Cowboys updates coming. Tell us what you think in the comments. In an astonishing turn of events that has sent shockwaves through the NFL world, the league has officially announced the cancellation of the much-anticipated matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. Sources close to the team suggest that the decision came after a series of unforeseen circumstances, though insiders are buzzing with speculation about what really prompted such a dramatic move. Fans who had already filled stadium seats and booked travel arrangements were left reeling, as social media erupted with confusion, disbelief, and, in some corners, outright outrage. Whispers from locker rooms hint at a mixture of logistical headaches and internal disagreements that may have made the clash impossible to stage safely. Some analysts are pointing fingers at last-minute operational snafus, while others are floating the idea that player availability or health protocols could have played a secretive role. The Cowboys and Commanders, both riding waves of high expectations this season, are now faced with the perplexing challenge of reshuffling their schedules and managing fan fallout. Rumors even suggest that behind closed doors, league officials scrambled to negotiate alternatives, including a potential rescheduling or a neutral site solution, though nothing has been confirmed. Adding fuel to the fire, a number of commentators have speculated that the cancellation might not be purely practical. Some believe internal politics within the league office or contract disputes with broadcasting partners could have been the invisible hand behind the unprecedented decision. For fans and pundits alike, the cancellation is being described as a jaw-dropping move that may set a precedent in professional football. Twitter, forums, and fan sites are ablaze with theories, from the plausible to the absurd, with some insisting it's a strategic ploy to heighten rivalry tensions and generate even more hype for when the teams finally meet. As of now, the NFL has remained tight-lipped on the specifics, insisting only that safety and integrity remain top priorities. Yet the air of mystery has only intensified the chatter, leaving everyone, from casual fans to diehard followers, speculating about what really happened behind the scenes. Was it a genuine logistical nightmare, a clash of egos, or a calculated stunt? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The cancellation of Cowboys versus Commanders has already become the talk of the season, a rumor-laden spectacle that promises to dominate headlines for weeks to come. That's a wrap from Cowboys Wire News. For breaking Cowboys updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Tell us your take in the comments.